The small town of Ashwood had always been quiet, the kind of place where everyone knew everyone, and nothing ever truly went unnoticed. But beneath the picturesque streets and perfectly trimmed lawns, dark whispers lingered, unspoken yet palpable. When 17-year-old Emily Cartwright arrived at her new school, she felt the subtle tension immediately. Everyone seemed friendly at first, but she noticed the way the older kids exchanged glances when the topic of the Rowans came up, a family that lived on the outskirts of town, in a house that had seen better days. Their estate, shadowed by towering oak trees, seemed to breathe secrets. Emily was curious. Rumours about the Rowans had followed her since the day she stepped into Ashwood. They were reclusive. Strange noises were said to echo from their house at night. And then there were the whispers about the three Rowan brothers, Alex, Nathan, and Luke, whose peculiar behaviours had set the town abuzz. The first time Emily saw them, she felt a shiver run down her spine. Alex, the eldest, had a gaze that felt like it could penetrate walls. Nathan's smile seemed charming yet forced, and Luke had a quiet intensity, a kind of presence that made her stomach knot with unease. They were polite, almost unnervingly so, but there was a subtle tension that surrounded them, like a storm ready to break. As days passed, Emily found herself drawn to the Rowans. She convinced herself it was curiosity, perhaps even sympathy for a family ostracized by the town. Yet, every time she stepped closer to their home, a sense of dread grew stronger. She could hear faint whispers late at night, coming from their windows, voices speaking in hushed tones that made no sense to her. One evening, under the guise of helping with a school project, Emily received an invitation to visit the Rowans' house. It was polite, almost casual, but her instinct screamed caution. She hesitated, then, driven by a mix of fear and fascination, she accepted. The door creaked open to reveal a dimly lit hallway, lined with portraits of the Rowan family through the decades. Their faces, frozen in time, seemed to watch her as she stepped inside. The air was thick, heavy with secrets that the walls themselves seemed to guard. And as she crossed the threshold, Emily knew that stepping into the Rowans' world would change her life forever. Emily had never believed that a house could feel alive. Yet the moment she stepped fully inside the Rowan estate, she felt it, a strange awareness, as if the walls themselves were observing her. The door shut behind her with a soft but final thud, and for a second, the sound echoed far longer than it should have. "Welcome," Alex Rowan said calmly. His voice was steady, practiced. Too practiced. The hallway stretched long and narrow, lit by dim yellow bulbs that flickered as though struggling to stay awake. Old framed photographs covered the walls, generations of the Rowan family staring outward with stiff smiles. What unsettled Emily most was how similar they all looked. Same eyes. Same posture. Same rigid expressions. "Your family's been here a long time," she said, trying to sound casual. "Longer than most remember," Nathan replied, brushing imaginary dust from his sleeve. "Ashwood was built around us." Luke said nothing. He simply watched. They led her into a sitting room where heavy curtains blocked the daylight. The furniture was old but meticulously maintained. Everything felt preserved, frozen in time. Emily noticed something odd. There were no mirrors. Not in the hallway. Not in the sitting room. Not even a decorative one. "Do you not like mirrors?" she asked lightly. Alex's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. "We don't find them necessary." A silence followed, thick, uncomfortable. To break it, Emily pulled out her notebook. "Mrs. Rowan said I could help organize some of the old documents for my history project." At the mention of their mother, something shifted. Nathan's forced smile faded. Luke's fingers curled slightly. Alex inhaled slowly, as though steadying himself. "She's resting," Alex finally said. "She doesn't like noise." Emily nodded, though unease crept up her spine. She had expected to meet the woman everyone whispered about, the unseen center of the Rowan household. Instead, she was a presence, a shadow. They led her to a study filled with dusty shelves and locked cabinets. Papers lay stacked in careful order, many handwritten, some yellowed with age. As Emily flipped through a journal, her curiosity deepened. The entries repeated strange phrases. "Unity is survival. The family must remain whole. Outsiders corrupt what they cannot understand." "These read more like rules than memories," Emily said. "They are principles," Luke replied quietly. She looked up, startled by his voice. His eyes were intense but not cruel, more like someone guarding a fragile truth. Before she could ask more, A sound drifted through the house. A slow creak. Then footsteps, deliberate, measured, coming from upstairs. The brothers stiffened. "That's her," Nathan whispered. Emily's heart began to race. "Should I?" Too late. A voice echoed down the staircase. Soft. Controlled. Almost gentle. "Alexander, you didn't tell me we had a guest." Emily turned toward the stairs. A woman stood at the top, partially obscured by shadow. She was older than she had imagined, her hair streaked with grey, her posture unnaturally straight. Her eyes, however, were sharp, piercing in a way that made Emily feel exposed. "I'm Emily," she said quickly. "From school. I'm helping with a project." The woman studied her for several seconds. Then she smiled. "You're very brave to come here." Something in her tone made Emily's stomach twist. "Come," the woman said. "You must be tired. Sit. Observe. Learn." The word learn echoed strangely. As Emily sat, she became increasingly aware of how the brothers positioned themselves, subtly between her and the door. Not aggressively. Protectively. Or perhaps, obediently. The woman began to speak, her voice calm and measured. "Our family believes in preservation. Order. Loyalty. The world outside fears what it doesn't understand, so we stay apart. We rely on each other." Emily nodded slowly, trying not to show her unease. "But isolation can do strange things to people," she said carefully. The woman smiled wider. "Only when the mind is weak." A sudden chill ran through the room. Emily noticed then what she had missed before. The journals weren't histories. They were records. Daily observations. Behavioral notes. Instructions. Corrections. This wasn't just a family. It was a system. A closed world built on obedience and inherited belief. And Emily had just stepped inside it. That night, when she finally left the house, the sky had darkened completely. As she walked home, her phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. "You shouldn't come back. They won't let you leave next time." Emily stopped walking. Her heart pounded. She turned around slowly. From the upstairs window of the Rowan house, a single light flicked on. And for just a moment, she was certain she saw 3 figures watching her, and one standing behind them, smiling. Emily barely slept that night. The message replayed in her mind again and again. "You shouldn't come back." She checked the number. Unknown. No history. No trace. Outside her bedroom window, Ashwood lay silent, but the silence no longer felt peaceful. It felt alert, as if the town itself were listening. The next morning at school, the Rowan brothers behaved as if nothing had happened. Alex greeted her politely. Nathan joked with classmates. Luke avoided her eyes. That disturbed her more than hostility would have. During lunch, Emily tried to approach Luke, but he stood up the moment she came near and walked away. As he passed, he whispered so softly she barely caught it. "Don't trust what she teaches." Her pulse quickened. That afternoon, driven by a mix of fear and determination, Emily went to the town library. If the Rowans had been in Ashwood for generations, there had to be records. The librarian, Mrs. Hale, hesitated when Emily mentioned the family name. "Young people usually don't ask about them," she said carefully. "I'm doing a history project," Emily replied. Mrs. Hale studied her for a long moment, then sighed and disappeared into the archive room. She returned carrying a thin, dusty folder. "This is all that's publicly available," she said. "And be careful what you go looking for." Inside were old census pages, property deeds, and faded newspaper clippings. Emily's breath caught. The Rowan estate had been registered under the same family name for over a century, but something didn't make sense. The ages repeated. Every 30 to 40 years, the records listed a new generation of Rowans, with the same first names. Alexander, Nathaniel, Lucas. Over and over again. The handwriting changed. The dates advanced. But the names remained. One article, dated nearly 50 years earlier, made her hand shake. Local investigation closed after reports of extreme familial isolation. Authorities state no crime was found. Family declined psychological evaluation. Another clipping mentioned a former schoolteacher who had attempted to intervene. She had moved away suddenly. No forwarding address. Emily felt a cold realization creeping in. This wasn't just tradition. It was repetition. That evening, a folded note appeared inside her locker. If you want the truth, come tonight. Alone. No signature. Her instincts screamed not to go, but curiosity, and a growing sense of responsibility, pushed her forward. The basement. The Rowan house looked different at night. Less like an old home. More like a fortress. A single side door was unlocked. Emily slipped inside, heart pounding. The air smelled faintly of dust and something metallic. A dim light glowed from the basement stairwell. Luke was waiting there. You came, he whispered. You asked me to, she replied. He hesitated, then nodded. You shouldn't have, but I'm glad you did. They descended the stairs. The basement was nothing like the rest of the house. The walls were lined with metal cabinets, filing boxes, and shelves of journals. Hundreds of them. Luke swallowed hard. These are the real records. He pulled one free and opened it. Inside were detailed observations written in a firm, controlled hand. Subject shows resistance to doctrine. Correction required. Reinforce loyalty principles. Emily felt sick. These aren't diaries, she whispered. They're psychological logs. Luke nodded. She believes the family must be preserved exactly as it is. Same roles. Same structure. Generation after generation. But how? Emily asked. People change. Time changes. She doesn't allow it. His voice cracked. She raises us to believe the outside world is dangerous, that only she understands how to keep the family pure. We are taught obedience before choice. Emily stared at him. That's control. That's abuse. Luke flinched at the word, then nodded slowly. I know. I didn't always. He showed her another cabinet, filled with old photographs. Each set showed 3 boys. Always 3. Always posed the same way. Different decades. Same expressions. They're trained to replace the previous generation, Luke said quietly. Not literally, but psychologically. Identity is inherited. Emily's head spun. That's why the names repeat. Yes. A sound echoed above them. Footsteps. Slow. Deliberate. Luke's face drained of color. She knows you're here. The basement light flickered. A voice drifted down the stairs, calm, disappointed. Lucas, you were always the most curious. Emily's breath caught. Footsteps began descending. Luke grabbed Emily's wrist. You have to go. Now. But. She won't hurt you, he whispered urgently. Not yet. Outsiders are useful. Witnesses. Proof that we are normal. The footsteps stopped at the bottom stair. A silhouette filled the doorway. You've seen things you don't understand, the woman said softly. But understanding comes with time. Emily stepped backward. I think I understand enough. The woman smiled, not cruelly, but with unsettling patience. You think this family is broken, she said. But it has survived when others failed. Order creates safety. Freedom creates chaos. Emily felt her back hit the cold metal shelves. Luke stepped forward suddenly. Let her go. The room went silent. The woman looked at him, truly looked, and something hardened in her eyes. You're forgetting your place. No, Luke said, voice shaking but firm. I'm remembering it. For a moment, Emily thought everything would collapse right there. Then, a loud bang echoed upstairs. A door slammed. Voices shouted. Someone else was in the house. Sirens wailed faintly in the distance. The woman's expression finally changed. Not fear. Calculation. She turned slowly toward the stairs. Emily didn't wait. Luke grabbed her hand, and together they ran. The night air burned Emily's lungs as she and Luke ran through the narrow path behind the Rowan house. Branches clawed at their clothes, gravel crunched under their feet, and behind them the old house stood silent again, too silent. The sirens grew louder. Luke finally stopped near the edge of the woods, bending forward to catch his breath. They weren't supposed to come yet, he whispered. Who? Emily asked, her voice shaking. The authorities. Or whoever she called. Emily stared at him. You think she called them? Luke nodded slowly. She always stays 3 steps ahead. They waited in silence until flashing blue lights appeared at the end of the road. 2 police cars stopped near the Rowan estate. Officers stepped out, cautious but calm, not rushing, not alarmed. That alone felt wrong. The official story. The next morning, Ashwood buzzed with rumours. Some said the police were responding to a noise complaint. Others claimed it was a welfare check. A few whispered that outsiders had misunderstood a private family matter. By afternoon, the official statement appeared. No evidence of criminal activity was found at the Rowan residence. The family has cooperated fully. Emily read it 3 times. Her hands trembled. No evidence, she muttered. Luke hadn't come to school. Neither had Alex or Nathan. Emily tried calling Luke. Straight to voicemail. Her chest tightened with panic. She went straight to the library. Mrs. Hale looked up as soon as Emily entered, her face pale. "You were at the Rowan house last night, weren't you?" she whispered. Emily froze. "How do you?" "I've seen this pattern before," Mrs. Hale said quietly. "Every few decades, someone gets close. Then things reset." She unlocked a drawer beneath the desk and pulled out an old leather-bound notebook. "I was told never to show this to anyone," she said. "But I think it's time." Inside were handwritten interviews, dated nearly 40 years earlier. A former social worker. A substitute teacher. The night air burned Emily's lungs as she and Luke ran through the narrow path behind the Rowan house. Branches clawed at their clothes, gravel crunched under their feet, and behind them the old house stood silent again, too silent. The sirens grew louder. Luke finally stopped near the edge of the woods, bending forward to catch his breath. "They weren't supposed to come yet," he whispered. "Who?" Emily asked, her voice shaking. "The authorities. Or whoever she called." Emily stared at him. "You think she called them?" Luke nodded slowly. "She always stays 3 steps ahead." They waited in silence until flashing blue lights appeared at the end of the road. 2 police cars stopped near the Rowan estate. Officers stepped out, cautious but calm, not rushing, not alarmed. That alone felt wrong. The official story. The next morning, Ashwood buzzed with rumours. Some said the police were responding to a noise complaint. Others claimed it was a welfare check. A few whispered that outsiders had misunderstood a private family matter. By afternoon, the official statement appeared. No evidence of criminal activity was found at the Rowan residence. The family has cooperated fully. Emily read it 3 times. Her hands trembled. "No evidence," she muttered. Luke hadn't come to school. Neither had Alex or Nathan. Emily tried calling Luke. Straight to voicemail. Her chest tightened with panic. She went straight to the library. Mrs. Hale looked up as soon as Emily entered, her face pale. "You were at the Rowan house last night, weren't you?" she whispered. Emily froze. "How do you?" "I've seen this pattern before," Mrs. Hale said quietly. "Every few decades, someone gets close. Then things reset." She unlocked a drawer beneath the desk and pulled out an old leather-bound notebook. "I was told never to show this to anyone," she said. "But I think it's time." Inside were handwritten interviews, dated nearly 40 years earlier. A former social worker. A substitute teacher.